What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, it looks like another big-time release from Nintendo has leaked out early, which probably not shocking to most people at this time for what we've seen so far during this generation, but it did solve one mystery going into its release, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, which is not going over well with reviewers, and now, from a new report, gives us some backstory showing that might be actually worse than even I was expecting. And we'll also be talking about the Golden Joysticks Awards that did happen over the weekend, giving us our first big Game of the Year winner. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure to hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with, the Game Awards. That is having its nominations revealed later on today at noon Eastern time. And I'm going to actually do a video. We'll just go through all of the different nominations that are happening in the different categories. I think there's be actually quite a few categories to go over, but obviously the one that most people are looking towards is the Game of the Year category, that having 6 spots. It was confirmed, so they're not expanding it just because it was a really good year in gaming. And in fact, they are certainly leaning into the idea that there's probably going to be some controversy around these nominees, because you can see this, for example, over on Twitter. The Game Awards, the biggest potential snub in the Game Awards nominations list tomorrow would be this blank. Well, it's going to be interesting because, again, 6 spots, something is getting left out that I'm sure a large number of people believe should be in the Game of the Year conversation, or at least a nominee, whether that's, say, a Final Fantasy 16, a Starfield, maybe a Super Mario Bros. Wonder. It's going to be interesting to see what all the judges pick and what ends up in the 6 slots here for Game of the Year. But again, look out for that later on today, noon Eastern. Also, Warner Brothers has now responded to the controversy around Mortal Kombat 1 and some of their choices for downloadable content, which does now just include fatalities. This is funny, by the way, because I feel like this is something we joked about more than 10 years ago when DLC and microtransactions really started to dig their claws into the industry. We're like, oh, one day I'm sure we'll just be paying for fatalities or ammo in first-person shooters or something. Well, we're at least here to the fatality part. And of course, a ton of backlash hit because the fatality, which was Halloween themed, was about $10. And it feels like a lot for a fatality in a Mortal Kombat game, but WB heard everyone, and we can actually see this posted up on IGN, where they responded, saying that Warner Bros. Is giving Mortal Kombat 1 players who bought the controversial $10 Halloween fatality 2 free fatalities, amid a vociferous backlash over the fighting game's aggressive monetization. That's clever. So what they've effectively done is not sold you a fatality for $10, they've sold you 3 fatalities for $3.33 repeating. No, that's just kind of where we are, it seems, with gaming. It's apparently fatalities now can be sold. I know there's work and stuff that goes into creating fatalities, animation setups, those sorts of things. It just seems odd that it's like, it's $10 more, and oh yeah, this is hitting pretty close to release, and it could have probably been like a free thing that we just threw in there as like a, hey, thanks for buying and playing the game, because they also have a bunch of extra fighters that are being purchased and so on. But that's where we are with the industry. Games are expensive, and I guess at this time, publishers are looking everywhere they can for extra money, which also includes things like fatalities in Mortal Kombat. Oh, and we just had Insomniac release Spider-Man 2, and I'll admit they've been churning out releases quite a bit for the first half of the PlayStation 5, which we at least have 3 years in the books now, right? And if there's an 8-year cycle, okay, we're coming up on year 4 next November. But it appears they could have Wolverine ready for 2024. At least this is according to a profile for an artist who is working on the game, and you can see it here. This has since been privated, so you can't see any of this information anymore outside of the screenshots that are floating around. But Marvel's Wolverine 2024 video game, again, a concept artist here. And I would be shocked if Wolverine's coming out in 2024. That would feel very, very quick for Insomniac to have Spider-Man 2, then Wolverine, and then on top of all the things they've done in the first 3 years for the PS5, it would be just an incredible amount of output for a PlayStation studio. Let's be real, games don't come out very frequently from studios that aren't called Insomniac. I'm thinking Wolverine is a 2025 game at the earliest, but here's hoping we find out soon as we head into 2024 with Sony ready to talk and give us an idea as what the roadmap is going forward for their releases. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a big release from Nintendo. It's actually out later on this week, and that's Super Mario RPG, as it has leaked out early, and this happens Seemingly every single time for a Switch release, it finds its way out online about 5 to 6 days before release, and it circulates very rapidly. People, of course, download, play it through emulators or on their hacked Switch systems, and we find out all kinds of spoilers, or in this case, information about who developed the game. That's been a mystery this entire way up to release, and I figured Nintendo would have said something by now about who worked on this game, of course, alongside of Nintendo, but no, we actually have to rely on the leaked ROM to figure out who created it. But anyway, we can see this posted up by Oatmeal Dome over on Twitter saying the game has leaked to the internet. It runs on the Unity engine, which is interesting now looking back on all that controversy that was happening around Unity and their revenue split and changing it up to where it was per download or install. And here comes Super Mario RPG on the Unity engine. Ooh. Nintendo's internal code name for the game is Stella. And of course, if you don't want to see spoilers, etc., go ahead and start blocking out keywords and that sort of thing. But after, of course, this became known and it started to circulate, people were downloading the game, checking it out early. So yes, here's your warning. Spoilers are going to be out there. I know, look, this game was on the Super Nintendo. It's also been on many other systems through downloads, virtual eShops, virtual console, whatever. But still, there are many people who have never played this before. Sean RGT, for example, never played this game. Many opportunities to do so, never tried it. So for him, brand new experience. So in that case, yes, I will be careful necessarily saying too much when I talk about the game later on this week, because I am picking this one up. It was a game I loved from my childhood, and I would like to revisit here with the Switch and updated visuals. But part of this, of course, came back to the developer, and we can see this posted up over on Reddit, as I'm sure the person posting here wasn't someone who came across the logo, but they say, according to those who have preloaded the game, definitely not this Reddit user, Arte Piazza is the studio responsible for the Mario RPG remake. So if we take a quick look over at the different games that they have worked on, whether it's developed, co-developed, what have you, even done CG design, as they say in the notes. They've been around since 1989, so there's not a new studio or anything there. And they've worked on quite a bit of Dragon Quest stuff, so been kind of alongside of Square Enix, and also sort of worked on different games that did go to the 3DS, the Switch, the Wii, all the way back to the Super Famicom. So, for example, they worked on Dragon Quest XI, Echoes of an Elusive Age, also Dragon Quest XI's. Dragon Quest VII. Really, there's been a lot of stuff here in their portfolio that would make sense why Nintendo would look around and say, okay, yeah, let's tap them and have them remake Super Mario RPG. So, of course, we were eventually going to figure out who developed it, because when you load the game up, I'm sure it shows their logo, and maybe Nintendo was preparing a launch trailer that would also show it there. It's just a strange thing to see how, I guess, secretive it was, or maybe Nintendo didn't think it was a big deal to say who's developing it, but there was a lot of speculation around Nintendo, Square Enix, one of them working on it. No, apparently it's Arte Piazza, so there you go. But yeah, I'm picking this one up as soon as it releases later this week. Let me know if you're picking it up, and if this is your first time playing it and you're going to try to avoid spoilers, because trust me, they're about to be flying all over the internet, social media forums, everywhere else. So be on the lookout there. Try to, I guess, avoid as much as you can heading into Friday. Next up, let's talk about the Golden Joystick Awards that happened ahead of this weekend, and it seemed like things were set up for, as you would expect, the showdown between The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Baldur's Gate 3, as that seems to be the matchup, at least the front runners for many people's Game of the Year card, and we at least saw how it went down here. So let's actually go through all of the awards and which game won. So we can start at the top here with Best Storytelling, that is Baldur's Gate 3. Still Playing Award, No Man's Sky. Best Visual Design, Baldur's Gate 3. Studio of the Year, Larian Studios. Best Game Expansion, Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty. Best Indie Game is Sea of Stars. Hey, shout out to Sea of Stars there. Really cool to see them pick up the Best Indie Game Award. Best VR Game, Horizon Call of the Mountain. Best Multiplayer Game, Mortal Kombat 1. People seemed a little surprised since Street Fighter 6 is really well received, but okay, Mortal Kombat 1. Best Audio, Final Fantasy 16, which, yeah, I'd agree with that, especially if you're in some of those battles and you hear kind of the music that kicks in, and yeah, okay, that's good. Best Game Trailer was Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. Best Streaming Game, Valorant. Best Game Community is Baldur's Gate 3. Best Gaming Hardware, PSVR 2. Breakthrough award is Cocoon or Geometric Interactive. Oh, if you have not played Cocoon, by the way, I recommend checking that one out. If you have Game Pass, it's on there. You don't need a lot to play it either, so even like a mid-range to lower spec PC should be able to handle it. Very, very interesting puzzle game. Then we have Critics' Choice Award as Alan Wake 2. The Best Lead Performer is Ben Starr as Clive in Final Fantasy 16. Best Supporting Platformer is Neil Newborn, Asterion, and Baldur's Gate 3. Nintendo Game of the Year is Tears of the Kingdom. PC Game of the Year is Baldur's Gate 3. Xbox Game of the Year, Starfield. PlayStation Game of the Year, kind of weird, Resident Evil 4. And the reason for that, by the way, is that Spider-Man 2 missed the cutoff. Otherwise, I'm sure it probably would have been Spider-Man 2. And then Most Wanted Game is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And Ultimate Game of the Year is Baldur's Gate 3. And I'll admit, seeing all the talk around Baldur's Gate 3, it winning an award like this over The Legend of Zelda, does make me wish the game maybe clicked with me a bit more, and unfortunately, I have not been able to get into Baldur's Gate 3, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't recognize, yes, obviously it's a very good game. So many people discuss and go over all the different parts of the game that they enjoy, which seems to mostly be about it letting you kind of do whatever you want for the most part as you play through and create your own story. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting matchup at the Game Awards, as I know there's going to be 6 spots. Most people figure it's going to come down to Tears of the Kingdom and Baldur's Gate 3, but as we're seeing here with Golden Joystick Awards, seems like Baldur's Gate 3 is probably the real frontrunner out of everything right now. So we'll see. I mean, again, nominees are happening later on today. I assume Baldur's Gate 3 and Zelda will be there, but then what are the other 4? Because those could also pull votes away from one or the other. Mario Wonder could pull votes away from Zelda, for example. So interesting stuff here to see how it unfolded at the Golden Joysticks, and we'll see how things go with nominees later today for the Game Awards. Then, of course, the big show happening in, 3.5 to 4 weeks. Next up, let's talk about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, which is out now. The multiplayer's live. The campaign's been up for a little while with early access happening. It's being bundled with PlayStation 5 systems, and it's also been getting beaten down by critics pretty much across the board. For example, over on Metacritic right now, sitting at a 53, and I mean, it's getting hit hard with like 40s and 50s, and it's not a very good campaign is what I'll say. As I was going through it, it sort of felt like they had to pull from things like Warzone and Spec Ops just to get it done in time. I mean, they still have their cinematics and parts of story interwoven there, but it doesn't feel like I would say linear, but I guess more on rails kind of setup where it tries to give you this epic story that ranges from, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 hours maybe. Now it feels kind of like they had to paste and duct tape things together for it. Well, we did get a report over the weekend. This was from Jason Schreier at Bloomberg, saying the new Call of Duty draws harsh reviews after rushed development. And get this, in this report, which I will link down below in the sources so you can go through it, because there's quite a bit of info in here, kind of giving you the backstory to how this even happened. Sledgehammer made this game in about 16 months. And the worst part is, in the first third to first half, everyone working on it kind of thought it was an expansion. And if you play the game right now on, say, the PlayStation 5, right? You use the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 launcher. It has the trophies kind of paired up as DLC, and that just sort of plays into what looks like a very hectic development process, it's weird to think because of how big Call of Duty is, right? How much money it generates. But the idea is, yeah, it comes out every single year, sells 20, 30, 35 million copies, no sweat, and then we're on to the next one. Well, it appears that one game that was supposed to come out in 2023 with Call of Duty got delayed, and they had to try to fill in the gap. Rather than do just downloadable content, which I do think this campaign has a place as maybe like that in Zombies, $20 to $30 downloadable content, which, trust me, for how much they sell battle passes and skins and everything else, that will feel like a drop in the bucket to the audience around Modern Warfare 2. I think it would have worked out a lot better, but for some reason, I guess they felt that they could sort of morph this DLC into a $70 product and fill in an obvious hole in their release schedule. There is one part of this report, though, I want to point out where they say new Call of Duty games will always top the charts, but some of the makers of Modern Warfare 3 say they hope their new corporate owners don't judge them too harshly for the negative reception after a shortened development cycle that was beyond the studio's control. So I will say Sledgehammer, they're pretty good at developing different games, but obviously Call of Duty, but this seemed like it was more or less the management who got kind of caught off guard by not having a game ready to go in like the biggest franchise in gaming that consistently releases one every single year. It's very difficult to do so. They tend to get it done, and unfortunately here it kind of caught up with them with Modern Warfare 3. And I do think that Sledgehammer, whether they maybe move off of Call of Duty and Microsoft allows them the freedom to do something else, or gets, I don't know, maybe an extra 16 months or so, just double that up at least a little bit there, and they can probably come to the table with a better outing than what, again, sounded like a very hectic, shortened, and crunch-filled development for Modern Warfare 3. I do hope Microsoft takes a hard look at what's going on with Call of Duty and maybe figure out a better release cadence for it so it doesn't have to be every single year, but I assume part of that $70 billion deal is that a Call of Duty game comes out every single year and generates revenue. But for them, monthly active users, subscription signups for Game Pass, I think you can kind of get that done with one Call of Duty game, big one, every 3 years, and then have little bits of DLC, battle passes, and things attached to Warzone in the meantime to keep people hooked. Just an idea, but we'll see how really Microsoft handles the situation now going forward, since they own Activision Blizzard, so it's up to them. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a fun patent that was discovered from Sony, and it seems to have to do with the PlayStation 5 and being able to jump in to certain points in a game according to a replay that you're seeing. And this is an interesting idea. It doesn't appear that it's going to come to fruition exactly as outlined in this patent, since it is public, and we know at that time it means that, well, they're kind of patenting the idea and maybe working on it a bit more in the background. But I think this could be a really cool feature if they can bring it to market for the PlayStation 5, or who knows, maybe the PlayStation 6 at this point. But we can see this posted up, and this was over on Xputer with a quote saying, such media content may have at least one or more trigger points, and each trigger point may be associated with a set of game data specific to a gameplay scene within an interactive title. The interactive title for gameplay may be launched by the user device based on the identified set of game data associated with the select trigger point. So you can kind of see a diagram where they attempt to show it just visually, and you sort of see this timeline here across a like really just, I guess, a recorded section. And the idea is it will basically have save states along the way, and you can just start the game wherever you want then, and it will jump you right in. Now, I assume this would also work with what they're doing now with things like their SSD, really, really fast, so they can jump you back and forth for any of these different games, whereas before, with a mechanical hard drive, probably wouldn't have been very smooth for that, but it would also allow you, I guess, to relive certain parts of the game that you want to just jump to immediately, rather than having to, say, load up a save that could be an hour before that, or something there. Or they also detail the idea of seeing maybe a streamer or somebody sharing it online, and your system would be able to pick up where they are exactly, and they can set a challenge for you as an example, and you can just jump in from there. That actually sounds like a pretty cool way to take that interactivity online, maybe with friends who you just kind of send them a challenge that you've basically created at certain points in the game, and they try to go through it themselves, or maybe helpful sections for people to try to help others find secret areas. You can, I guess, legitimately just save state right in front of a secret door, and there you go. But also, on the flip side, they'd probably have to be careful with all the different trophies, because I feel like that would make it really easy to get certain ones, like collect 100 different gems in a world. Well, I'm going to have a save state that's 99 gems, and I'm going to put you right in front of the last one. You pick it up, you get the trophy, and now you pay me $5. That's what I mean. These are kind of things that I'm sure Sony has to consider, because It'll probably happen, but I do like the idea, at least the way of thinking here, just kind of outside of the box for additional features when it comes to interacting with different people online through save states even, but also yourself if you want to go through a game and jump to a specific point right away. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, these are the 2 highest rated games of the year that are expected to be the front runners at the Game Awards. Out of the 2, which one do you think wins Game of the Year? Okay, so 60% voted for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, 40% for Baldur's Gate 3. It's gonna be an interesting one. Now, we will have a player's choice. I think the Game Awards does that, right? Where they do a player's choice. They have like this big round robin thing that basically just squeezes out more and more games as they go, and eventually they get down to the winner. And I mean, that could be anything. RoboCop could win that because people like RoboCop. Like, that's very possible. It's really going to come down to the panel, the judges, and where they put their votes. And I don't know. I feel like Baldur's Gate 3 could actually get that crowd pretty well, and that maybe Zelda isn't able to get as many votes. If even something like Mario Wonder, like it's on Nintendo's platform, 2 big first-party games this year, and it might pull some of those votes away. So it's gonna be something fun to keep tabs on. The conversation should be pretty good online, and then of course we'll get to the Game Awards. We'll get hopefully some pretty cool game reveals, as well as who takes home the ultimate prize at the end of the year, most likely between Zelda and Baldur's Gate 3. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Ethan, who says, going between the OLED Switch and the Steam Deck, I felt an OLED is all the Steam Deck was missing, so this is really exciting to me. The limited edition looks sick. Might try to snag one, but oh man, that price is hard when I already have had a Steam Deck since early on. I was a day 1 pre-order. You know what's interesting? I did see this come up a lot. The Steam Deck, it looks cool, the OLED, right? It's kind of expensive though, I don't know. However, I do see a lot of people tell me they have like 3 or 4 Switch systems in their house just for them. So like multiple OLEDs as an example, Switch systems, those are like $350 each, or the specialist ones at $360. And then here comes the OLED Steam Deck at $550. Is that still the impulse territory if it's in the 300s, but if you go up $200 more in the 500s, that's like, okay, and that's not really impulse anymore, technically. It's not really collectible to me because it is a bit more expensive. I just see Switch systems get bought up all over the place, kept in boxes, and maybe that's just because Nintendo stuff does tend to hold its value over time. It was just an interesting thing I noticed, just kind of the reluctance at the Steam Deck OLED, but also jumping on like the big Mario OLED or the big Zelda OLED or something that releases from Nintendo. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Whether Super Mario RPG, of course, leaking out early like every Switch game seems to. But are you picking it up? Is this your first time playing it? Let me know. And then also, what about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3? 16 months to create this game is how long Sledgehammer had. Have you tried it out, and what are your thoughts so far? Then Game of the Year nominees today. Who do you think takes it between Baldur's Gate 3 and Zelda if some other game doesn't come in and pull the massive upset? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.